Major League Baseball presents Big League Tips.
Look what you can learn about a baseball game from reading the box score. Each player's times at bat, runs scored, hits, and runs batted in. The inning-by-inning score, who made errors and extra base hits, how each pitcher did, how long the game took, and the attendance. Box scores help you spot the hot pitchers and hitters. Add to your baseball enjoyment. Read a box score today. Baseball fever. Catch it.
The preceding was a message on behalf of Major League Baseball.
Welcome to the Cinematic Void podcast. Cinematic Void is a cult film series that hosts screenings in the Los Angeles area as well as virtually. I'm your host, Jim Branscombe, and joining me as always is...
Hey, it's Nick Vance, Paranoid Futures on all social media. You could find a Cinematic Void on the World Wide Web at cinematicvoid.com, as well as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and all major podcast platforms. If you want to support The Void, you can consider joining our Patreon. Not only do you get cool perks, but you make this podcast as well as the Cinemadness movie possible. If you like what we're doing, give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcast, subscribe to the YouTube page, just hit us up everywhere, Cinematic Void. But that it's a big help if you go and like hit the like button, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, in a vacuum, like sending us a message like, hey, I really like the podcast. Well, that's cool, but like writing reviews and stuff like that helps to get it out there, so we're not a big secret. Although I'll say probably from this time last year, comparatively, the podcast is much, much bigger. Much bigger than I thought it would be. But yeah, if you want to show your support, enjoy the podcast, give it write a little review.
We want to get it to the point where we don't have time to read your personal messages. So give us a great rating, and we'll all get there together.
We'll all get there together, and that's the journey. We're part of the journey here. So it's been a bit since we recorded a podcast, I think. When was it? March? April? When the fuck do we record? I'd lose track. So we've been doing these basically monthly. We may pick it up a little bit more here and there. We have life. We're fucking busy, man. So we should talk about what we've been doing in between the podcasts here. So we'll start with Nick, because Nick has been, doing some intros, working on his other podcast.
Yeah. So the day after we dropped the last podcast, which was the So You Want to Be a Film Programmer podcast, like literally the day after, but like total coincidence, I was asked in the office, like, hey, do you want to host a screening and pick a film? So like it was like literally the day after the podcast dropped, I became a film programmer. So
look at those results, goddammit.
Straight up, it's just one day after. Here, boom. That's all it takes. But I actually also I saw some other people kind of getting hyped on Twitter, saying that they were actually gonna try their hand at programming in their own town or whatever. So very cool. Good luck to everyone. I was kidding about the gatekeeping thing. Please let me keep doing programming. I had so much fun. But so at the LF3 last Sunday for the Sunday print edition we do at the American Cinematheque, I screened on 35 millimeter The Fire Within by Louis Malle from 1963. And it's part of the Criterion Collection, so it was also like had it in my back pocket that the podcast I'm doing with my buddy Nikolai, that we haven't actually released any episodes yet, but this is a Criterion title. So, but we rushed back here to the studio and recorded an episode real quick. But yeah, I got to pick up this film from the Janus catalog when I picked it up, where I typically pick up Janus titles. And it's a beautiful, glorious 35 millimeter print, as they say.
Was there other things you've been doing lately or anything like that?
Yeah, I'm getting my new band's gonna go in the studio at the end of the month, so I'm fucking pumped, dog.
Pump Dog.
I'm Pumped Dog. That's my new name.
Pump Dog. Fuck.
Stupid. Yeah, I'm fucking stoked, man. It's gonna be sick. So, yeah, doing things, making moves,
doing all kinds of shit. I mean, I guess we recorded in March.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I think it was in the middle of the. I think it was like we were, I think we were talking about the Cinemadness sequel series, and I think I was hinting at Horror by the Water, which was the thing I did in April. And I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think what we actually shown, because I'm like, I probably should actually go back and listen to the podcast. But like after listening to when like you do your edit, then I do my edit, it's like I don't need to listen to this shit again.
Yeah, I feel that.
I don't need to hear my fucking voice. But I do want to talk about Horror by the Water, which I think since January Giallo has been the most successful series I've done at the Los Feliz 3.
Oh, sick.
Like it all only did 3 movies because I went on vacation for the last week of April, but like, you know, they all did really well. Showed a really beautiful 60-year-old print of Carnival of Souls. Like it was probably one of the best in theater experiences of sitting and watching a movie I've had in a long time. Like Carnival of Souls, like we're gonna probably talk about it at some point later this year.
Cool.
Maybe not on the Janice podcast because I saw Nikolai gave that movie 2 stars, so we got beef.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. I'm
fucking
itching
beef.
to watch it. That rules.
That is not a 2-star movie, motherfucker.
Yeah, sometimes that fool. I'll see him rate something that's super sick low. So yeah, shout out to Nikolai, you fucking maniac.
Man, there ain't no shout out. We got fucking professional beef now.
Well, he's never seen They Live, but I want to see you guys do a straight up They Live style brawl in an alley.
Man,
Put these glasses on, motherfucker.
Man, my knee's been giving out on me lately. I go to fucking suplex him. I'm just gonna break my fucking leg.
I like you instantly go to suplex. Like that's the.
Well, that was the bit. What was it? It was a backdrop. They did some wrestling moves in They Live.
They do.
But anyway, that Carnival Souls print was beautiful. Like especially for it was 60 years old original print. Also showed Messiah of Evil, which was from the 70s, which is a really great, weird, surreal slow burner. Have you ever seen Messiah of Evil?
Nope.
I think you would dig it. It's definitely art horror, and like it has 2 kind of all-timer, like really creepy scenes in it. There's one that takes place in a Ralph's. There's another that takes place in a movie theater.
Okay.
Like it's really good, and like that print was faded, but like sometimes when you show faded prints, it plays in the favor of the movie. It just kind of gives it a different quality. Not everything works as a faded print because sometimes like if it's a really beautiful movie and you're watching with no color, it sucks.
Right.
But then, you know, exploitation movies kind of become a different creature when you take the color out and everything's like got a red hue. So it played really, really well. And then I closed out things with The Fog. Dom Atkins was supposed to show up, but like he had to cancel last minute when he realized it was a movie that his brother Tom was in that didn't have a mustache, so he refused to show up.
Oh man, what a dick.
Well, what actually happened is like Deanna Rooney was supposed to come out and she was supposed to play Jim Branscombe while I was playing Dom Atkins, and she ended up couldn't do it. So
that's so ridiculous. I love it.
I didn't feel like I would have done the bit if she was there, but like I was like, nah, I can't do it without that. Yeah. But then after that, I took a week off, went for a not soul searching. That seems weird. Like, you know, basically took a solo vacation by myself. Went to Salem, Massachusetts. Checked off my bucket list.
Vision Quest.
Vision Quest. I think that's the proper term.
Yeah.
Is Vision Quest. Stayed at the Hawthorne Hotel, which is like it's the historic hotel that's been there forever. I've always wanted to stay there. I wanted to stay there many of the Octobers that I went over the years, but you can't book it because it's always booked. Like it's kind of like people that own like season like football or baseball tickets. Like you have to wait in line, and if someone drops out, then you get your chance to get in, kind of thing. So it's really hard to get in October, but in April it was pretty easy, or it was when I did. But like I was surprised when I went to Salem, and that place was fucking packed on the weekend.
Right on.
I got there on a Thursday, and there was like, man, there's a lot of tourists here, and they're like, it was busy. I think at least through Saturday. Sunday kind of died off. So the homie Derek Millen.
Cool.
So shout out to Derek. Speaking of They Live, he wants to come back on the podcast and talk about They Live and Roddy Piper. So
oh hell yeah,
we'll be doing that at some point later this year. Saw my friend Midnight Mark from the Coolidge. We had lunch together and saw Kay Lynch from Salem Horror Fest and had lunch with her. So did a little business stuff. Not really business, like hanging out with contemporaries and stuff. But like a lot of it was like Salem's a small town, but I had somehow walked 60 miles in 4 days.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, I didn't have a car or anything, so anything I wanted to see that was like a mile or a mile and a half away, I just walked.
Hell yeah. Okay.
Got windburned and sunburned one day when I went to the Salem Willows. Salem Willows is kind of like off by the water. It's kind of like a weird, like, I'll try to explain it. It's like a boardwalk kind of town. It has like arcade games and weird pizza parlors and like clam shacks and shit like that.
Cool.
It's weird, but it's a really cool place because, like, you know, most people go to Salem and it's just all witch shit.
Right.
And a couple other things I did was I did movie locations while I was there. And if you haven't checked them out yet, they're all on the Cinematic Void YouTube channel. I did, I think, 3 Salem vlogs. First one was on Burt I. Gordon's Burned at the Stake, a.k.a. The Coming. Because who else in their right mind is going to do a video location on that movie that no one's seen? And obviously there's some easy things to find, like the Witch Museum or the House of the Seven Gables and stuff like that. But like what I was really excited, and I didn't find it until like literally the last day I was in Salem, was the house they used in the movie for the little girl.
Okay.
It took me forever. I had a house address because it's on the door in the movie, and I was looking for photos of Salem in the 80s, and I found a street, and I saw a house on that street from the 80s that looked similar. So I was like, I'm just going to punch in the number and see what comes up on, Apple Maps, Google Maps, whatever the fuck is on my phone. And I was like, holy shit, it's the house. It looks fucking identical.
Nice.
And the house behind it that you can see in the shot is identical. So I was like, fuck, I found it.
Hell yeah.
So that was that. I went to the cemetery that was used in the Lords of Salem, which is about a mile outside of the main drag of Salem. It's a really beautiful cemetery. And no one really talks about it because most of the people, when they do cemeteries in Salem, they do like the old burying point, which I couldn't get into anytime because it was locked off. Mm-hmm. Apparently at some point it was unlocked and people could walk through. But like every time I went by, it was like locked up. And then there's the one from Hocus Pocus, but that's in Marblehead. So that's a little further hike to get out. So I skipped that, but I did Lords of Salem one. That was really cool. Did most of the locations that I could find. I think I did skip, like I said, the one cemetery from Hocus Pocus, and then I think I skipped the Pioneer Village because that was a little too far to walk. Yeah. And I wasn't even sure it's open because, like, every time I've ever been to Salem, the fucking Pioneer Village has never been open. So skipped that, but did that. Did some writing. Sat outside. Got into a meditative state. Kind of cleansed the soul.
There you go. Hell yeah.
Came back and started running right into like a lot of programming here. It's, because I haven't, as we're recording, I haven't done a screening in 2 weeks, which is kind of unusual since like...
Yeah, it was when you left, man, actually, that first Monday without a Cinematic Void screening was like something felt off, Yeah.
And then we
I don't know if you plan to just actually still do weekly, but it's.
I mean, it's more up to programming and like it. I'm actually skipping 2 Mondays in May. I skipped this week as we're recording, and then like I'll be back on the 9th for the Last American Virgin, and I think National Geographic has like some kind of rental thing on another Monday. So, but I got a bunch of stuff. I actually got a shit ton of stuff coming up. It's as we're recording the next week, I'll be screening. Already said this, The Last American Virgin with Diane Franklin and Lawrence Monason, two of the stars of the movie. It's a beautiful 35mm print. So almost sold out at this point, which I'm really happy about because, sex comedies from the 80s don't always do well programming-wise, but it's going to be a fun screening. And also, it's a warm-up for the Cinematex Bleak Week, which, if you've seen the movie, you know why, but no spoilers here. Also, it's that the Last American Virgin screening is part of the, I think it's like 82, the Summer of Movies series that the Cinematex doing with Beyond Fest. I think that's what it's called. I saw it under a couple of different titles. So, and there's a bunch of things planned like Rocky 3 and Conan, Road Warrior, things like that. I'm doing Last American Virgin. I'm also doing the Beastmaster with Don Coscarelli, director of Phantasm, and Paul Pepperman, who also he co-wrote and produced Beastmaster as well as Phantasm with Don. So a lot of Q&As coming up this week. And then I got some canon stuff coming up at the end of the month, which might be by the time this podcast comes out, might be as the podcast is coming out. I'm doing Ninja 3, The Domination on 35mm, which if you haven't seen it's a ninja movie with Exorcist like elements.
Cool.
Only from canon. It stars Lucinda Dickey, who was in Breaking and Breaking 2, Electric Boogaloo. It's got Shogazugi, the legendary martial artist who basically played a million different ninjas in a million different ninja movies. And then I'm closing things out with canon on May 30th, Memorial Day, with Death Wish 4, The Crackdown, where Charles Bronson single-handedly takes out all the drug dealers in Los Angeles.
Good.
I watched the trailer for it recently, and it's fucking ridiculous. Like, it's literally like, because Death Wish has always been like a rape revenge kind of series, and then it gets thrown out in this fourth one, so it's just like Paul Kersey,
Yeah. Did we do a Death Wish? Didn't we do like 2 or something a while back?
We did Death Wish 3 for the Void 3-year anniversary, which seems like fucking decades ago now.
But I mean, did we do a Death Wish on a podcast?
No, that was the only one we did was Death Wish 3.
Okay.
But I think at some point we'll probably talk about other Death Wish ones, But Death Wish 4 is just like straight up like change the narrative. I think it was after like Bronson got pissed at Michael Winter for like going back and like sleazing up and making like Death Wish 3 so much more violent. Refused to work with him again. Brought in J. Lee Thompson, who worked with Bronson on a ton of stuff, and I don't know. There's some good one-liners in it. All I'm gonna say is, if you haven't seen it, Charles Bronson just wants to make a sandwich. And speaking of Bleak, the Cinematheque, I think, I was still on vacation when they announced that they're doing Bleak Week, which seems to be right up your alley.
Yeah, definitely. It's pretty. Yeah, there's a bunch of shit that of course I've already seen, but I want to go see on the big screen. You know.
Yeah.
Funny games.
Yeah.
Jesus.
When I was doing the Cinemadness Midnights down the Arrow, I wanted to do Funny Games, but that series died.
I want a double
death.
feature of both Funny Games.
No. Don't do that. That remake is not that good.
I think they're both great.
It doesn't work the same when you have stars in it, because like, because as we get off topic, but sort of on topic because we're talking about Bleak Week. The Funny Games remake is a shot for shot remake of the original Funny Games. Same director, same Naked City song that plays throughout it. But you have Tim Roth and Naomi Watts in it, and I think the reason why the remake doesn't work is because you have recognizable faces, where like in the original Funny Games, like you don't know who all these people are, and it feels really fucking real.
Yeah.
Until you get to that really, really fucking downbeat twist.
Yeah.
Which is probably one of the greatest like visual fuck yous that any filmmaker could do in any film. But they're playing that. I'm actually doing 2 screenings within Bleak Week. I'm showing one of our high school favorites, Combat Shock.
Oh, yeah.
With Buddy Giovanzo coming out. He'll be in, I think he lives in West Germany now, or Germany. I guess there's no West Germany or whatever anymore. I guess it's just Germany. But he's going to be in town, and like he wrote Brett from AGFA about doing a screening, and Brett's like, hey, I'm coming to you with this. So talked to programming. Made it happen. So I'm actually stoked for it, because like I think it was this band we had, Inspite, second demo, we started off with a sound clip from Combat Shock.
Hell yeah.
I'm just going to drop it in right here.
I felt a tremendous power surging through my veins. I've now become God.
I think for Bleak Week, this may be the bleakest movie.
Combat Shock?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I mean, if you think about it.
It's been a while. I probably haven't seen this shit since like 97.
The movie is fucking hopeless. Yeah. Like, I know Chris from programming wrote Buddy to see if you want to write any more blurbs for any of the, because they're working on a Bleak Week book or program that's coming out with it. And Buddy was talking about like the movies he would like to write for, and obviously Salo came up and things like that. So
yeah,
I mean, it is fucking bleak, and like they've talked about in The Office, and like I don't want to spoil it for anyone, and I don't want to spoil it for anyone now who hasn't seen it. We might do an episode where we talk about, but it's fucking nihilistic as fuck.
Yeah.
There ain't no way around this one. And then the other film that I'm presenting is a rare 35mm print from the Library of Congress of The Seventh Victim, which was produced by Val Lewton, who produced Cat People and things like that. And it's kind of another nihilistic movie, but it's like 1940s, so, Hays Code stuff, but like it does have a very, very horrifying and depressing downbeat ending. I originally pitched Seconds for Bleak Week, which I still think would have been a pretty good spot, but I'll do Seconds at some point. Get it in there.
I know we've talked about this in the past. Is there a 35 of that floating around?
Of Seconds, UCLA has one.
Cool.
So.
Right.
So whenever I do it, I got to do it, plan it out in advance just to make sure we can get it. So, we've talked about a bunch of things that been going on, what's been happening, Nick stepping up, becoming his programmer in his own right. I feel like we should do a master class on that, so you want to be a film programmer thing. Like, how David Lynch and like fucking, who else does those like master classes?
I
Like,
mean, shit, man, that podcast is pretty fucking, I don't know.
informative.
Yeah.
I don't know if we need to follow up, but like, I guess if you listen to it and you enjoyed it and there's other things you want to know or like more, deeper like programming and like that kind of baseball type stuff, let us know. We can always do another episode. And since I've said the magic word, we can start transitioning into what this episode's about. And it's baseball. Now, this was an episode you suggested last year, and I think at different points we had it on our schedule and it just dropped out for whatever reason.
That's right, because I want to talk about that wild thing. What's his
wild-
name? Some Vaughn.
What
We're talking about Major League, folks.
Major League. Fuck. Well, we're not talking about Major League, but like we are talking about
The one where if you dream it, it'll happen.
Oh, yeah. Fucking. Oh, god damn it.
There's a
Field
misquote. All these fucking.
If you dream it, it will happen.
If you think it, manifest it.
Man, somehow it might be actually better than the actual catchphrase. If you think really hard, it may happen. Go to the cornfield now. Fucking Field of Dreams. What other baseball movies are you going to throw at me that we're not going to...
League of Their Own. The Sandlot.
The Sandlot. Yeah, we're going to talk about none of those movies.
Are
you really trying to pull another one out of your
the
ass?
Sam Raimi one?
Sam Raimi baseball movie?
Let's fucking go.
Oh, that's right. That's fucking right. He did do one. Fuck, what is it called?
2 seconds here. Hang on.
Yeah, we're gonna burn her fucking like look up
Your fucking Lifeline.
Lifeline already over a fucking. I remember he did do a fucking baseball movie. Shit,
For the Love of the Game.
that's what it fucking was. And I mean, while we're at, Clint Eastwood did one too.
Isn't there one just called like Mr. Baseball, maybe?
Oh, that's the fucking Tom Selleck one.
Yeah.
Oh man, but we're talking about none of those things. We're talking about void-centric baseball-related movies, and the amount of baseball.
Bull Durham?
Fucking hell, man. Fucking Bull Durham. I mean, you're saying that, and Susan Sarandon's been in the news lately.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Yeah, we're not gonna talk about it. She's in it for two different reasons. So.
Okay.
Actually, like three, but they're all related to the same thing. I don't have time to get into Susan Sarandon, that kind of shit. You guys have Twitter. Yeah. Just fucking look up her name. You will see like 1,500. I mean, I want to say something about Twitter. I follow specific people. I don't want to see fucking everyone else's shit.
Yeah, I kind of like it. I kind of like the way that they've done that lately. It's just like I don't know. I get my own little box. You know what I mean? I have what I follow, sure, but like if it doesn't show me kind of other things, I'm in this like very insular world where I don't get to see other perspectives. It just kind of Twitter now just kind of throws everything at you.
Yeah, but then I don't see anything from anyone I actually know.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
That's my.
It's just like a feed of shit you don't know what the fuck it is.
Man, I don't give a fuck about the Met Gala.
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck about like a lot of like the superficial. I don't give there's a lot of dumb shit. And like if you read one post on one article, you will get fucking nothing. Like I think I clicked on one link, and this was a couple months ago, about Yee and fucking Kim Kardashian.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden my whole feed was like fucking suggested posts about like their fucking drama. I was like, no, it was from someone I knew. I can't remember who it was.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at the article or something like that.
It's true.
And
Algorithms are awful these days. I'll fucking click on something I'm curious about on YouTube, and now I've just ruined my fucking shit, and I'm seeing shit related to whatever that was for a fucking week. It's just annoying as hell. The world is just annoying as fuck.
Yeah. Man, fuck goddamn algorithms. Anyway, and I think we did talk about how they suck on fucking the programming podcast in terms of advertising. So, as we've had many sidebars, we're talking baseball-related genre movies. And I do want to talk about a few that we aren't talking about today, because originally we had a bigger kind of pool of things we're going to talk about. And I kind of just wanted to do it as a baseball doubleheader. Mm-hmm. Just a good old-fashioned baseball doubleheader. So ones we're not going to talk about was The Fan with Wesley Snipes and Robert De Niro, directed by Tony Scott.
I think we just screened that at LF3 maybe.
Yeah, it was for the Biltmore Hotel Pool or whatever fucking series that was.
And I thought it was going to be Der Fan, and I was excited.
Or it could have been The Fan with Lauren Bacall,
Mm-hmm.
where she has the Michael Baine's her fucking stalker.
Okay.
A lot of fans. Yeah, Der Fan, the movie shot in goddamn Germany, like taking place at the Biltmore Hotel.
I don't know. I mean, I didn't really. I just heard The Fan was playing. I'm like, looked it up. I'm like, disappointed. You know.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with The Fan. I also think it's a little outside of like void centric. Like we can go a little art house, we can go a little commercial action, we can do a lot of things. I just thought for the scope of it, it just didn't fit. And that's not that I think it's a bad movie. Another thing I left out, we were going to talk about, there's a section in John Carpenter's Body Bags that's, funny enough, directed by Toby Hooper that stars Mark Hamill.
And his balls.
And his balls?
Yeah, it shows his balls in that segment. You can see him.
I don't remember. But
Yeah, totally. Go back and watch. You see his balls.
man, fuck, man. What is this, Teen Wolf?
I don't know, man.
Anyway, if you want to see fucking Mark Hamill, who got his eye busted out with a baseball, and his balls and his new eyeball. I think it's called the eye. I think that's what the segment, not the balls, his eye. Something like that. But I don't know.
It's the only thing I remember about that segment.
I have no recollection of this. Like, and please do not send this fucking screen grabs of Mark Hamill's balls. Whatever you do. God damn it. Anyway.
Did I make this up? I don't know. I mean, I guess I'll go back and watch it now too. I swear this is something that, like, yeah, the last time I watched it, I'm like, okay, that's Mark Hamill's balls.
I have no comment on this.
Yeah, fuck.
All right, so regardless, it's a movie about baseball and apparently balls, I guess, or a segment. But I feel like we might talk about anthology films at some point, so I figured just keep it all together. And the last thing that I had out there was a TV movie called Murder at the World Series, which I've never seen, and I think I found it on YouTube, and it's just like, you know what, also, but where schedule's been, like, as we transition back to, like, doing more of these, like, themed podcast around movies, I don't want to do too many movies off the bat, because, like, I know you've been doing a shit ton of print traffic, and I'm just coming back from vacation getting, like, resorted here. So, left that one out, but, you know, probably check it out at some point. So, the movies we're going to talk about today are a movie from 1989 and a movie from 1990, and they are very polar opposite, which is fine. And as we talk about them, we're going to talk about the amount of how much baseball matters in these movies.
Yeah.
Which the mileage is going to vary on this. We're going to talk about Night Game, which you just watched recently for the first time. Actually, I watched it maybe a month and a half ago for the first time. It's always been on my list, and I've heard like mixed to not good things about it, but I kind of enjoyed it, and we'll talk about it here in the next segment that's going to be coming up in a second. And then the other movie we're talking about is a movie you've been... Basically, I think the real reason that we're doing this episode of the podcast, which is Blood Games.
Yeah, I think I had made a suggestion, maybe even when we first started the podcast, when we were nearing opening day, and that was just kind of the suggestion was like, why don't we do some baseball films around when baseball season starts? I don't know I don't think either of us are particularly like baseball fans. Like, I used to go to O's games every once in a while. I've been to a few Dodgers games, but like, do I care? Like,
I mean, I've been to 2 baseball games in my life.
Just two.
Just 2, and it was when I still lived in Maryland. I went to Memorial Stadium, which is the old stadium where the Baltimore Orioles played, and they won. And then I went to Camden Yards, which I assume is still the stadium that the Orioles play in. This is how fucking out of touch I am.
Wow. So you've been to both stadiums. So
I've been to both
amazing.
stadiums, and
Cool.
the Orioles lost that game. I mean,
The Orioles lost?
yeah, get out, get the fuck. I think the last time they won didn't they win a World Series in like 1980 or 81 or something?
I think it's 83.
83. It was shit.
Yeah.
I was-
So yeah, they haven't won in 40 years
Yeah. So,
as of next year.
I mean, yeah. I mean, the biggest thing about Baltimore Orioles, at least for both of us, was like Cal Ripken Jr.
Mm-hmm.
And of
And
course,
that fuckface bat.
oh well, for his brother Billy.
Yeah.
And the story about like when a bunch of people try to kidnap Cal Ripken Jr.'s mom and hold her for ransom.
The shit that matters.
The shit that's the shit we care about in baseball. None of it which actually has to do with
Like
the love of the game.
Pete Rose gambling, like
fucking-
steroids,
Lenny
fucking scandals,
fucking
like,
Lenny Dykstra selling used cars.
Yeah.
Like that's the shit I care about. Like I will say this, like I read this a bunch of years ago, and this is from our friend Jim DeHaven. He had John Kruk, who was a baseball player's autobiography called I Ain't No Athlete Lady. Funny enough, John Kruk only had one ball because he lost one of them.
Okay.
Tying it back to the Mark Hamill
He
thing.
lost it. He misplaced it somewhere.
Yeah, I forget the story. I don't want to say he had testicular cancer or something like that. He's got one ball.
Okay.
But not that matters. But we already talked about Mark Hamill's
No
ball.
no judgment.
No judgment.
You know, we're ally. If you only have one ball, we've got your back, bro.
It's fine. One ball, two ball, no balls. It doesn't matter.
No
to us.
judgment, homie.
But his autobiography talked about when he played with the Philadelphia Phillies with like Lenny Dykstra, where like basically like it was just like a dirtbag like fucking baseball team.
Mm-hmm.
And like they all smoked and like, you know, chewed tobacco and like drank after games and shit like that. And I always thought someone should have made that into a movie, but no one ever did. But anyway, that's about the extent of my baseball knowledge.
Who's the good New York guy that was always in trouble for drugs?
Oh, Daryl Strawberry?
Daryl Strawberry, yeah. Hell yeah, Daryl Strawberry is so sick.
Oh, but then we can talk about that Simpsons episode where like Mr. Burns got all the baseball players, where he fucking kept making Don Mattingly like shave his sideburns when he didn't have it.
I feel like some bad shit came out about Don Mattingly too. I mean, probably just that whole era, right? It's just like scumbags.
I mean, like Roger Clemens. I mean, I feel like we know more about baseball.
Yeah, dude. But we're all just naming like the baseball cards we had at a certain age.
Well, we're also naming like,
oh yeah, Nolan Ryan, fucking
dude. Nolan Ryan.
I don't know a fucking thing about baseball now.
But like, I just remember like there was another player named Robin Ventura who like Nolan Ryan hit with a ball, and Nolan Ryan was pretty old at the time, and Robin Ventura like charged the mound, and Nolan Ryan put him in a headlock and just beat his fucking ass. See, this has nothing to do with the winner or loser of any of these games.
I don't care about any of that shit.
I just care about the fucking drama.
Hell yeah.
If they're fucking gambling, if they're fucking doing drugs. I mean, not steroids. That's fucking boring.
Yeah, it's boring except for the fact that, like, look at fucking... we really are talking about baseball here. Like, look at fucking Jose Canseco and fucking... What was his name? Mark McGwire. Like, those guys... what do they call them? The fucking...
Bash Brothers?
The Bash Brothers. And, I mean, they were fucking lampooned by fucking...
Andy Samberg. Lonely Island.
But, like, but those guys were fucking monsters, dude.
Dude, yeah, like, dude, they look like professional wrestlers.
Yes.
It's like fucking Macho Man Randy Savage fucking like hitting it. Like, oh yeah.
Incredible. That I miss that era of baseball. I would go to those games if I knew that there would be like some fights, some drugs, some fucking...
Man, it's just, I couldn't tell you a fucking thing about baseball now.
I want a combination of pro wrestling and baseball.
I think that's why... It's not even on nostalgia.
We should create that.
Yeah.
We should be sports entertainment entrepreneurs
and create like pro wrestling baseball. Like you fucking when you knock over the catcher for like when there's like a call like home base, you have to fucking like leg drop him or some shit.
Fuck yeah,
man.
There's some ropes to jump off of to fucking drop.
Fuck, dude. Yeah, I mean, I you know what? Now that I think about it. The nostalgia I have for pro wrestling is tied into the nostalgia I have for baseball. Like, I couldn't care less of who won or like, but I feel like they were one and the same in some ways because they were all fucking roided up. I mean, I'm sure there was other sports that had like big drug problems or whatever. I mean, I know there's always rumors about like, I think it was Freddie Gibbs talking about like the fucking 1985 Bulls where everyone's on a cocaine circus or some shit.
Oh,
like
wow.
that.
Okay.
At least that's what he's rapping about. I don't know. I don't know enough. Like, I can't even pretend to know enough about basketball. I think
there was the one guy, the Maryland college guy, that fucking dropped dead on the court, and I think that was due to cocaine.
It's a hell of a drug, man.
And if it wasn't, apologies. Maybe he just dropped dead, but I think that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, I don't know.
Hell yeah, drama. I love it. Bring the drama back to sports. Fuck the drug testing. Fuck the bullshit. Let's have them like intertwine each other's lives. Just like, let's bring sports back.
Exactly. I mean, when's the last time we had Bo Jackson?
Fuck yeah.
Or the Boz?
Hell yeah. Brian Bosworth. What
Yeah.
what movies was he in? He with
was
the
in-
motorcycle?
He was in Stone Cold, which one of the movies we're talking about today had a guy that was in Stone Cold with him.
Hell
Fucking
yeah.
Lance Henriksen. Holy shit. Fucking Stone Cold was fucking hard, dude.
Hell yeah.
Fucking Bo Jackson. Who all played two sports? It was Bo Jackson and Deion Sanders, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Dude, Deion Sanders also rapped. Like,
Fuck yeah.
dude, it's just... And then we can talk about boxing and Mike Tyson. Like, I feel like we don't know shit about sports, but we know enough of the pop culture
No,
surrounding.
we just remember when sports used to be sick.
Yeah.
Dude, Mike Tyson fucking boxing that dude's ear off on the plane last week or 2 weeks ago.
I mean, that dude had it coming.
He really did. Man, we got to do a boxing episode too.
Oh, we should.
Fuck yeah.
Well, we should have Matt Average, our friend, on, because he used to take photos for HBO Boxing.
Oh, sick.
And like he used to, I think he worked a couple of Bernard Hopkins fights, and Bernard was probably one of the greatest middleweight boxers ever. And Bernard also knew how to systematically frustrate people. He always was the master of the accidental headbutt.
Hell yeah.
Like, well, if we do a boxing episode, we should have Matt on.
I know you know your fucking boxing too, so goddamn.
Yeah. So, well, yeah, the one sport that like no one likes, everyone's like, I like UCF or whatever that fucking is. I don't even know what that fucking mixed martial arts.
Yeah, MMA, UFC.
Yeah,
they're
that's-
actually like two different things. I think they're like
I thought they were one and the same. I
Well-
don't know.
MMA is a part of UFC, but UFC is just an organization.
Yeah, I guess it's like it's like WCW and WWF
Yeah.
and like NWA and all those like different wrestling promoters.
Rappers.
Rappers, yeah. Rappers. All right, so we're going to take a quick break here, but when we come back, we're going to actually, possibly, maybe, talk about some baseball and softball related movies here on the Cinematic Void Podcast.
As a shortstop, I know a lot about double plays, like the Track Auto Orioles $100,000 double play sweepstakes. Every week, one lucky winner gets $4,000, and 10 other folks will win a pair of Oriole tickets. With the $100,000 double play sweepstakes, you've got 2 chances to win each week. Enter every week at one of Track's many convenient locations around Baltimore. Enter to win today.
Track Auto, over 10,000 parts, price to go.
There sure are a lot of Ripkins in this town.
People call me Nails because they say I'm tough as nails. But I'll tell you, I haven't been tough enough to beat Spit Tobacco. I've tried, and I'm going to keep trying until I win. But until then, do both of us a favor. Copy my hustle. Copy my desire. But please, don't copy my tobacco use.
Just play the game.
Message furnished by Major League Baseball and the Major League Baseball Players Association.
Welcome back. We're going to be talking about some baseball and softball related movies here on the Cinematic Void Podcast. Up first is a movie from 1989 directed by Peter Masterson called Night Game. For those of you who don't know, Peter Masterson was kind of a little of a character actor from Texas. He had little bit roles in The Exorcist and Stepford Wives. Just trying to make a more Void-related tie into this. The film stars Roy Scheider, best known for being in The Jaws, The French Connection, all that jazz. I think Sorcerer, I think Roy Scheider is the real king of 70s cinema.
Mm-hmm.
I've said this multiple times. He's also Marathon Man. Like, I think at some point people need to talk about, like, everyone talks about Gene Hackman and like Robert Redford and De Niro and all those guys, and they're all great actors. But when I think 70s cinema, I think fucking Roy Scheider.
Well, this film is from 1989, and I'm pretty sure he's the same age in this film as he was in Jaws in the fucking mid 70s.
Yeah, it's like
he doesn't age, but more so, was he ever young?
That's a good point, because every movie I've seen, like, he might have been some stuff from the 60s that I can't think of, but like primarily from 70 to like 90, where he was in a lot of stuff, he did look pretty much exactly the same.
He was always just a little leathery, or super tan. Like, he just always had that same look, the same exact, like, his hair's the same. Oh,
Yeah,
same guy.
same guy. I mean, fuck it. I don't know how. That's a good point. The movie also stars Karen Young, who, to tie it back to Roy, was in a Jaws sequel, Jaws the Revenge, which we talked about on our Christmas episode last year. Lane Smith, who you'll recognize from The Son-in-Law, as well as Over the Edge and Dark Knight of the Scarecrow. Paul Gleason, who is basically the principal in the Breakfast Club, the Major Dick guy, and Rex Linn, who's been in a couple interesting movies, The Long Kiss Goodbye and Under the Silver Lake, which I think is a pretty good LA movie, which we might talk about at some point
Cool.
if we ever talk about LA movies. Have you seen?
I haven't. No, it's on the list, but no, I've just never really gotten to it.
Yeah,
and it's very mixed reviews.
I think the mixed reviews comes from people that see themselves in the movie.
Amazing. Okay.
But we'll save that for another day.
Cool.
The film was shot by Fred Murphy, who lends everything from Q the Winged Serpent to Hoosiers, which is I'd say a wide range of cinema there.
Is that a basketball film?
Yeah, Hoosiers was his college, or was it high school? I can't remember. It was Dennis Hopper's big comeback movie after he cleaned up and gave up drugs and alcohol. He did that in Blue Velvet.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
That's a weird 1-2 punch. And for the soundtrack, it's by Pino Donaggio, who we talked about a lot, for Giallo films, Argento films, and also Brian De Palma films. And I will say this score has a lot of fucking saxophone.
Mm-hmm.
Excessive amount of saxophone. But it was the late 80s, and I think there was a trend at a certain point where saxophone was just overused on soundtracks. I don't know why. Maybe we should ask the saxophone player at some point. I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever. I mean, I don't know why I'm getting stuck on the saxophone. I just remember listening to it, was like, man, there's a lot of fucking saxophone in this movie.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's appropriate or not.
Right. I like a lot of jazz now, but I'm not a big horn guy in the first place. I don't like it over any rock music or something.
Yeah.
It just bugs me. It makes all rock music sound like the Saturday Night Live theme. And it fucking drives me nuts.
Or a ska band.
Yeah, and let's not even go there.
Anyway, this movie was shot in and around Galveston and Houston, Texas, and features the legendary Houston Astrodome, which was also used in such movies as Robert Altman's absolutely batshit Brewster McCloud, and the TV movie that we mentioned earlier, Murder at the World Series. For those who haven't seen it, although you probably should since we are going to get into spoilers and stuff, I feel like even though it should be implied there's going to be spoilers, maybe we should just say it.
Yeah.
So, anytime we're discussing a proper movie and potentially other movies, there's going to be spoilers because we're just going off the cuff here. So
it's been out since '89.
Well, that's the other thing. It's not like we're talking about a movie that came out last week and by the way, Doctor Strange only has one ball.
Right.
But, I mean, is that really a spoiler? I don't know. Fuck it.
Everybody already knows that Doctor Strange only has one ball.
But you know what I mean. Basically...
It's canon.
It's canon. It's canon now. Anyway, whatever. We're talking about old movies. In order to talk about old movies, we're going to have to talk about spoilers to kind of discuss them. So I feel like it's implied, but I feel like we should start saying it because I feel like, as I said, in the first segment, the audience has grown, and we never really did spoiler warnings. We just fuck it, here you go. So, if you want to pause, watch the movie, or if you just want to listen to it, get all the information. Because I also feel like on another side, talking about a movie and spoiling it for people to some extent doesn't really spoil the actual movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think it also might make people go see it. It's like, oh, that fucking happens? I need to go see that.
Yeah.
So, mixed camp. But anyway, spoilers abound. So, plot for this movie. A police detective tracks a serial killer who is stalking young women on a beachfront after each game that a baseball pitcher wins. Pretty snappy little log line there. So, first off, how much baseball is actually in this movie?
It's kind of the fucking bookend.
Yeah, it's kind of the book. It's in the background.
Yeah.
I guess my other point of reference of baseball, going back to, funny enough, Darryl Strawberry, is that you've seen Bad Lieutenant, Abel Ferrara's Bad Lieutenant.
I haven't.
Oh, fuck.
I haven't.
You need to see it.
Yeah.
So there's lots of bits where Harvey Keitel is in his police car listening to Mets games with Darryl Strawberry, and he's gambling on them, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of baseball on the radio.
Cool.
In this movie. So
would you call it a baseball film?
Bad Lieutenant. I mean,
you made some leaps before.
It is integral to the plot.
Yeah.
But you also get to see little Harvey Keitel. You talk about Mark Hamill's balls. You get to see the full Monty Harvey Keitel. There's a lot of dick and ball talk today.
Sweet.
I mean, what do you think of baseball bats? A dick? You got to throw some balls.
Yeah.
There you go. See, everything it's all related, but it's really not a baseball movie because like it's integral to the plot, but like in the bearing of the baseball games does have some effect, but it's not the real narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Where this is really, the results of baseball games are directly tied to what happens in this movie. This is kind of a first time watch for both of us. Me a little bit before you. So what was your like kind of feelings on when you were watching it?
Well, first off, this has one of the least memorable titles of all time. Like, you could tell me the name of this fucking movie a million times, and I'll still go, hey, man, what was the movie I was supposed to watch? I fucking have no Night Moves, Game Day. I don't know. I mean, I got a million. It's similar to like a zillion fucking things.
I mean, it's an apt title for the movie, and it's also greatly generic.
It is apt, but it's just so generic that like motherfucker. However, I've seen the key art for this. I don't know if I saw it years ago. I don't know if I saw it on a VHS shelf back in the day. I don't know where the fuck I know it from, but the hook hand going through the baseball like that, I've seen that a bunch. So like, very unmemorable name, very memorable art.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like where movies, there's plenty of movies that have killer titles and like have suck ass art.
Yeah.
And like that is one of the main reasons I've always wanted to see this movie is because that fucking poster art with the fucking like claw hook hand in the fucking baseball. It's like shit's gonna get real.
Yeah.
And I guess without like doing a lot of research, I thought there's gonna be more baseball in it, but like literally the amount of baseball in this movie is background.
Yep, totally.
But you're telling me something like that. Watching this movie kind of remind you of like watching TV back in the day. You want to?
Yeah, it's like there were, back when we just watched TV and everything wasn't so fucking on demand, you would get home from somewhere or you would just flip the TV on, and you're not flipping the TV on at fucking exactly 6:00. It's 6:15 or it's 12:39 and the movie's already been on for 20 minutes or something. And I don't know, there was just like an era of movies, and I think a lot of like the 70s and even like kind of more exploitation stuff that even you're super into, like a lot of that stuff, like you could just turn it on 20 minutes in and like it doesn't matter that you missed the beginning. Like, I don't know, like that era of film is like comforting somehow, like to just sit down and just, you turn it on and you go like, yeah, this is pretty cool. I won't change the channel. I'll keep watching it. And then like by the end, you kind of make a decision like the next time that it's on, are you going to try to be there when it starts to catch those first 20 minutes or whatever, Like, how many movies in your life did you sit down like in the same kind of scenario and like you never saw the beginning?
Oh, it was plenty, especially growing up. Like,
yeah.
It wasn't until like maybe getting a VCR when you start taping stuff. Like, but even if you taped it, you might still watch what was going on live at the same time, and then like when the tape's done, you might rewind and watch the other stuff. But like, yeah, there something in like that era of films and like how they played on TV, and actually I think it lends itself to how the movie is, because the movie's fucking laid back.
Yeah,
for a police procedural like murder mystery.
It's like it's the kind of thing you turn on, and in a few minutes, even though you started in the middle, in a few minutes you know what's going on. You can fill it in. It's a murder mystery. This is how he's the cop.
Yeah.
Like, it's fucking boom, boom, boom. It's all there. It doesn't matter. I miss that. Like, most of the shit I watch now, it's just like, if you're not fucking totally invested in like every second, like you fucking miss the whole thing. And, sometimes I do just want to sit down and fucking straight up turn off. And this is great for it. So like, I may not even rate it high, but like it really appeals to like some nostalgia in me.
I mean, it doesn't ask a lot of you, because like I do think you could pick up this movie at any point and fully figure out where what the premise is. Yeah. I mean, I think there's something like to be said about that in a movie, or just how movies are. And it's like, obviously there's movies that are more complex that you have to pay attention to and that kind of stuff, and like those are cool too. But like, I think this is where like things like Netflix and that kind of stuff fails, because they make these movies, they're like, you're supposed to be hyperly engaged, but because the way streaming and Netflix and chill, or whatever fucking catchphrase you want to use, you don't want to actually engage, you fucking tune out. And because the way those movies are made and designed and how they look, when you tune out, you're not fucking paying attention.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, if your brain's disconnected, you can still understand that Roy Scheider's looking for a fucking serial killer.
Mm-hmm. It's also, hey, man, like, and now in this modern age, this kind of movie is the only kind of movie where you can get away with really just fucking around on your phone and you're watching it. You know, if you really want to, you know, it's a good and bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, but I guess we should talk about a little bit of moving, like, more outside, like, the nostalgia of, like, how people used to watch movies. I mean, you know, Roy's character is like, he's an ex-minor leaguer that became a cop. I guess he's a hot-headed cop, and it's kind of implied there's, like, some incident in Dallas or some shit. They keep bringing it up.
Yeah.
I'll say this. I think Roy is probably, like, 20 years too old for this role, but at the same time, he looks exactly how he looked in, like, 1975 when he was doing Jaws. So, like, that kind of invalidates it.
Yeah. But plus, like, same thing with just, like, era-wise, the Hollywood, or I don't know if you call this Hollywood, but, like, you know, they got away. It wasn't always just, like, the young hot guy. Like back in the day, you could have fucking Tom Atkins. Yeah. You know, you have, like, you don't need some fucking handsome guy. I mean, not that he's not. I mean, he's a handsome guy, but you know what I mean.
It's like there's a difference between, like, and I'm not trying to be disparaging, like, you know, Paul Rudd or Ryan Reynolds versus like Roy Scheider or Gene Hackman or like people with character.
Large difference, yeah.
and it's like, I'm not trying to, like, you know, I'm not trying to debate talent or anything. I just think, like, there was a point where you would plug in, like, a well-established character actor to fucking lead a movie.
Kicks ass.
And now we're closer to maybe like how the 1940s, 1950s would do, where everything's cast on star power.
Mm-hmm.
Like in Marvel movies, like, it's always going to be the prettiest motherfuckers.
Do you think that type of changes in culture is a pendulum swing? Do you think it'll eventually go back to character actors and older folks?
I honestly feel like, and I could be wrong, but I feel like we're about to hit an implosion with, like, superhero franchise shit.
Mm-hmm.
I know we're getting off topic here, but, like, I have a theory that, and people are going to get mad that I say this, superhero movies are the new musicals.
Mm-hmm.
Which is not to say there's plenty of great musicals. There's plenty of great superhero movies. I don't really actively watch superhero movies or musicals, but there was the demand for them. And I think we're hitting the point that we're getting to the oversaturation point where people are going to start wanting something different. And I think, you know, maybe that avenue is going to be more like HBO Max and, like, that kind of original, like, series content, which seems like people were really engaged for, like, you know, Yellow Jackets, which I haven't seen. People were engaged in kind of, like, things that would probably be the mid-range movie or the lower budget, like, I'd say the $5 to $50 million movies, where, like, people like David Lynch and, like, John Carpenter and, like, those kind of people occupied, like, you know, artistic movies. And I do think they're going to come back. I mean, also, it depends on what's going to happen to streaming. I mean, I would like to see, like, kind of a move in, like, the theatrical experience to get away from, like, fucking IMAX and all that kind of stuff. Like, where it's not even about the movie, it's about the format. I mean, that's kind of hypocritical to say, because I show a lot of movies based on the format, which is film, you know. But at the end of the day, when I'm showing a film on film, it's still about what the movie's about. Whereas, like, I feel like people go to movies now more for experience than engaging in art. Right. Not all the time, but I think at a certain point, it's just like, you're going to become numb to it. Like, how many fucking Marvel movies are at this point?
30-some.
Yeah, it's just like, and they all have a sameness to them. And it's like, I know as we're recording this, like, Sam Raimi's directing that new Doctor Strange movie, but it's not enough to get me to go see it.
Yeah, I like, you know, I really like Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
But
that was a different era of fucking superhero movie.
Yeah, no doubt, man. No doubt. But yeah, even Sam Raimi can't get me to go see that thing.
Nah.
Even if Doctor Strange only has one ball.
But I think, like, movies like Night Game, like, don't exist anymore. Like, I just feel like, I mean, occasionally, like, there was Adrian Lyne had a erotic thriller with Ben Affleck. I forget the name of it. It was actually pretty good.
Okay.
It's on Hulu now, because, like, after Disney bought Fox, they just started fucking dumping all those Fox Searchlight and Art House titles without giving a fuck. I just feel like adult movies, which I guess in some ways this is, but, like, this is also kind of like a dad movie, or how a traditional dad movie is.
I'll see that, yeah.
And maybe I'm just hit the dad mode of my life, where I just, like, because, like, this movie, I was kind of talking about it, and we were talking about the experience. It's fucking laid back, like just whatever, you know. The reason why I kind of hit my radar is because like we've been talking about doing a follow-up episode to the Giallo adjacent episode, and like, you know, movies that show traits, and this was one of them. And like I kind of don't think it's enough, but there is Giallo moments.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually, I think there's also slasher moments, but it's more of like, it's a police procedural thriller, you know, overall. But I don't want to deny that, like, you know, there's a Giallo element to it, because, like, you know, the killer is only specifically killing people when a certain pitcher wins.
Right.
And that's the only time.
That's pretty sick.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's like, you know, certain, like, serial killers can only kill in the full moon and like all that weird shit, but like
man's got to have principles.
Another thing I liked about this, and this is because I think it was right before like I did the horror by the water series. It's like most of this movie and most of the murders actually all the murders take place on a kind of boardwalk area by a body of water.
Yep. Which
is funny because it's a movie about baseball, but really, it's a serial killer at a like kind of carnival boardwalk area kind of thing.
I'm spacing on what town were they supposed to be in?
I think it was Galveston, Texas.
Okay.
Like where they actually shot is where it was.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I haven't been to Texas in like forever.
So they're like at the Gulf of Mexico? I don't know.
I mean,
I don't really know Texas super well.
Yeah, I don't either. I think Galveston, I mean, we already used our lifeline, so we're just going to have to make shit up here.
Is Houston on the water?
I've been to Houston. I mean, Houston's more of an industrial town.
Yeah.
I'm assuming Galveston is on the outskirts. It's like, I don't want to say a suburb because I think it's its own city, but it's on the, I think it could be just a lake. Fuck if I know. Yeah. It's not really implied, but like there's people parking on a fucking beach and shit in the movie.
Yeah. They're at the beach.
Yeah, and like it's kind of it's an interesting thing because when you think Texas, you don't think that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So but I don't want to say Texas vibe, but it's just like, you know, slowpoke, like there wasn't a lot of cowboy hats in the movie either, which I think is a plus. But, you know, there's some good bits in it. Like, you know, you got Richard Bradford's police chief who's constantly got headaches and like just over this shit. And like, he's just like, oh man, we got to solve this crime. So they all have a meeting, have some sandwiches. He's got a headache, go try to figure out work angles and stuff like that. I mean, on one hand, that shit's kind of boring. Yeah. But on another hand, it's just like, if you're just into that fucking vibe, it's fine.
As much as they're laid back though, there's like some like internal like arguing and whatnot on the force, you know?
Yeah, because it's like different, like I think one's like a local police force and others like state and like, you know, county. Like, you know how police have like 400 fucking divisions. There's like local, state, county, whatever, you know, all that shit's going on. You know, the jurisdiction stuff where like Roy and Paul Gleason are basically battling out. It's like, this is my jurisdiction kind of bullshit. Yeah. I mean, like, it's kind of typical of like 80s cop movie where like there's always some conflict between who gets to solve the crime kind of shit. But, you know, speaking of Roy, and we already talked about him being potentially too old for this role, it's like he just seems so fucking over it.
Yeah.
Like, he's just lighting up cigarettes.
He's already dealt with fucking sharks.
He's dealt with sharks, fucking like staging a big musical, like fucking trying to drive a truck in South America. Like,
he's dealing with this shit at this beach town.
Yeah, man.
Fuck this.
Yeah,
I don't blame him for being over it.
I mean, but he's great in it. It's just like, I mean, one of the other things, and I think friend of the Void, Bruce Holchek, I saw his review on Letterboxd about it. He said like it seemed like part of the movie was like just delaying his wedding because he's marrying this girl that like, I guess like you couldn't do this plot point now. I think she's like in her 20s and like he's obviously in his 50s. But like there's comment on that because like I think he knew her mom or like whatever weird shit is.
He was her stepdad.
No, I don't think it was that weird. No, it wasn't that well, depending on what side of the coin you are. Because
she kind of had a Mia Farrow look on her. I guess that's why I said that.
I don't fucking know. There's a great scene where I guess like the mom just fucking hates him and like he's trying to impress her and buys her a fucking TV. And he's explaining like, you know, he's making payments on it. It's like a color fist. I mean, I like shit like that. It has nothing to do with anything, but like, you know, he's kind of getting mad at the mom because she's trying to plan this big ass wedding that's going to cost a lot of money. He's like, I just want to fucking watch baseball, smoke my cigarettes, drink my bourbon, marry your daughter, and solve this fucking crime. And you're getting in my way with it. I mean, it's a weird, fun kind of like, I don't know, dynamic. That, like, you know, he's trying to solve this crime, trying to get married, and it's just like, it's a lot of undercurrent stuff. And again, it's part of that vibe. And like, if you're not into it, just be like, that shit could be like, just get on with it.
Yeah.
Or, matter of factly, get on to the juicy stuff, which is like, you know, the kills in the movie. I wouldn't say they're excessively brutal in this movie, but like, they definitely are unique. And I do think there is one, I don't want to say all-timer, but there's a really, really stellar one that happens in the funhouse.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I mean, like, because like they obviously the poster gives away that he's got a hook for a hand, but like you don't really see it. Like that first murder, you just hear that swipe and you see the girl hit the ground and she's like bleeding out of her neck and stuff. The one in the funhouse is fucking like, it kind of reminds me of like one of the kills in Umberto Lenzi's Eyeball. Because there's a funhouse sequence in there. Obviously that girl and Eyeball is on like one of those carts going around, but like it's a really good scene, like a really good murder scene. It's probably the most giallo scene in the movie. There's like red lights and shit. I mean, all the murders are pretty grimy, but then like when they kind of like hold back on the hooked hand thing, and then you finally kind of see it. Right. And you know, the interesting thing is how they kind of reveal it, because like Roy's talking to a guy that like writes for sports for one of the local newspapers, and the guy's like, hey, if you can give me anything on this crime, because like I guess, you know, the correlation between the wins and all that. Where like he goes to actual, I think, a Astros game, and he's sitting in the press box with the guy, and they're talking about like, you know, players, and that's when they discover like the pitcher who's been winning all these, who wins the games where the murder happens. Basically, when they picked him up, they cut this other dude, and when the dude got cut from the team, he got in a bus accident and lost his hand. And you know, it's kind of a convenient way to figure out the movie, but whatever. I think it works. And there's also another moment in this movie which I thought was really interesting, and like, I don't know if people would do this now. The killer mistook the pitcher winning a game, which he didn't, and then he apologized for killing the person. Like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that, which was another clue in figuring out.
Hell yeah.
Like, how many times like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to kill this person, because that goes against my motif. So he apologizes for it, which is just, it's fucking wild.
My hat off to him. Respect.
Yeah, so we should talk about the finale, where you kind of finally get the review of the guy, or the reveal of the guy as he's chasing, like, where he's chasing Karen Young's character around, like, at that restaurant. And, like, first when Roy's trying to, like, talk to him, he calls him by the wrong name, and he's like, everyone gets my name wrong, kind of shit.
Yeah.
Like, that's fucking great. Those are things that, like, yeah, it might have been done as, like, a little humor break, but it doesn't play like it. It just plays like, man, this guy's
really got a chip on his shoulder about like his whole trip, you know?
Yeah, he's just pissed. Yeah. And then like, fuck, man, with the showdown's a little ridiculous. It's kind of like, I mean, it's like he throws Roy through a fucking glass window and just kind of goes for it, and then like he just kind of like, you know, gets shot, falls in the water, and dies.
And it all happens quick, but it's effective.
It's effective. It's you know, I think it's a pretty good ending. I could see in a different world that like after like the end scene, there's a cut to the water, and all of a sudden the fucking hook comes out like her for a fucking sequel. But like, I mean, since it was sold as a thriller, so obviously they were looking to like make an immortal hook hand killer that would come years later for I Know What You Did Last Summer. Different hook, but
yeah.
But you know, the movie does end on a little bit of a hokey late 80s, 90s thing where like Roy, just married, goes to the baseball game, and the pitcher who like had been winning those games that all the murderers were based around comes up to him and thanks him for his service and says congratulations, and goes out and pitches.
Hell yeah.
So that's how the movie ends.
I like it.
You know, it works for what it is. For the whole, I mean, if we talk about it, like, that's kind of the expected ending. And, like, if it had any other twist, if the fucking hook hand killer, like, reached out of the water like he's fucking Jason at the end, I don't think it would work. So I think
he's like, he ends up, like, taking off the catcher's mitt, and there's a hook, you know?
I'm sure, like, if this had been made in the 2000s,
Yeah.
100% would have been like that. Would have
He's
been
like the
twist.
announcer at the game, or you know, something.
Hot dog vendor.
Yeah.
Royce gets a hot dog and hands it to him. It's on the hook.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but late 80s, 90s, they weren't doing that shit. They just wrapped it up and said, "Here you go." So I don't know. You got any final thoughts on Night Game?
It's a sick one. It's sick. It's not great, but it's sick in its own right.
I mean, I kind of rated it higher than I probably should, just because I think it's your sentiment of just like, it's just kind of like sit around, like lounge fucking day movie.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like you can be invested or you don't have to be invested. You get the, you know, your enjoyment in that kind of movie will vary. And like when I watched it, I think I watched it on my birthday, and that was I don't know why I picked that. I mean, I had a stack, and I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna watch Night Game.
It's my fucking birthday.
I'm gonna watch it. I'm watch this movie. So, but you know, it was kind of a lazy afternoon movie.
Cool.
But, all right, we're gonna take a quick commercial break. When we return, more baseball here on the Cinematic Void Podcast.
More ball talk.
For Detective Mike Seeger, America's favorite pastime has just become a matter of life and death.
We've got 6 women killed over a 2.5 month period. Want to get this guy?
What is that, a cleaver? What are we talking? A butcher here? Some goddamn...
What about a hook? You know, like a longshoreman's hook? Every time Barreto pitches and wins, this guy strikes.
Now, Mike Seeger has to catch the killer before the killer heads for home. Roy Scheider, Night Game.
Unbearable suspense that keeps you on the edge of an abyss of terror.
Take a cult film odyssey into Cinemadness with Cinematic Void. Based in Los Angeles, Cinematic Void is a film series that specializes in horror and exploitation films. Currently, we are hosting Cinematic Void Up All Night in the Cinemadness movie, a monthly virtual screening series, as well as the Cinematic Void podcast, where we dive deeper into the world of cult cinema. You can find Cinematic Void on the World Wide Web at cinematicvoid.com, as well as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you like what we do, you can support Cinematic Void by joining our Patreon. Until next time, see you in the void. Welcome back. We're taking the mound once again on the Cinematic Void podcast as we talk about more baseball movies. I guess more specifically, we're talking softball in this one. Or is it baseball?
It's softball, I think.
It's softball, yeah. I think so. But like, were they doing overhand or underhand pitches? I wasn't paying attention to that. And it's kind of sad because like,
I think it was shit. You know, I don't know.
I think it might have been overhand.
It might have been.
Maybe it is baseball, not softball.
You know what? We were both being sexist and thinking it was softball just because it's women.
You know.
And I just want to admit it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I guess I thought I think on the back cover or something like it says softball, but like maybe it's not. I mean, I don't know. You know what? We're gonna do the rare second lifeline here. Maybe third, yeah. Because like I watched this movie twice recently, and I have no recollection how they're throwing the pitches.
Well, I love that the on Letterboxd at least, the opening tagline is America's favorite pastime just turned nasty. America's favorite pastime is
baseball. And
then the next line it says a team of softball players.
Yeah, that's why I'm getting confused here.
It's a different sport. It's played with a different ball, so therefore it's a different sport.
Yeah.
And there are different rules.
Let's see here. We're watching a scene where they're going to throw a pitch. They fucking threw it overhand. They don't throw overhand in softball.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's just like...
There's just no... There's no consistency here.
There's no consistency. Like, because it stuck in my head because it was softball because they talked about like being a softball team. I think all the fucking literature for it is. Mm-hmm. I'm looking at the baseball. It looks bigger than baseball. And normally we don't watch these things in real time as we're doing this, but like I'm fucking confused and like, I mean, this guy's striking out. Like, I think it's baseball. They're throwing overhand.
But is the ball bigger?
It looks slightly bigger, but like I don't know. Like there's the fucking dude wearing the Hot Rod shirt.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
How we've tied this back to They Live now 3 times.
Hell yeah. And just wrestling.
It's like, all right, we need to stop watching movies. So I think it's a baseball.
All right. So baseball films.
Yeah, so
Let's
it is
go.
baseball film. So, we were not wrong in saying softball because that's what all the stuff is. But like my memory was like, I don't remember anyone throwing a fucking underhand pitch. Yeah. So now that we've sidetracked it before we started, we are talking about 1990s Blood Games, directed by Tanya Rosenberg. This was her directorial debut and swan song. She never made another movie afterwards, which is kind of a shame because this movie's actually really fucking good. The film stars Laura Albert, who is one of the top stunt coordinators working right now. I think she works on the new Hawaii 5.0, 5.0, or 5.0. What? How's this show? Hawaii 5.0. That's what the fucking... I said 5.0. Like
5.0.
I'm doing a fucking math equation. But she's been in a bunch of other like kind of exploitation movies as an actor. She was in The Unnameable, which is one of the better non-Stuart Gordon directed H.P. Lovecraft adaptations.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually had her out for a screening of the 1990s Dr. Caligari because she's one of the stars of that movie. And I did a Q&A with her. So she was really terrific that night. So the movie also stars Gregory Scott Cummins, who appeared in Stone Cold with the Boz, who we mentioned earlier. See, we're tying all these together here. He was also in Phantom of the Mall. Lee Benton, who appeared in the TV series Mike Hammer. Ken Carpenter, who was in such things as Hellraiser 3, Elves, and Phantom of the Paradise. So we got a lot of Phantoms going on in this too. Ross Hagen, who appeared in Angel and Avenging Angel, and
Is Avenging Angel a sequel?
yeah, it's Angel Part 2.
Okay.
It's funny thing, and like there's 3, I guess, real Angel movies, and there's a 4th one that came out with a different distributor. Not once is Angel played by the same person. So
with zero explanation, or they just pop up.
Well, the first 2 were directed by the same guy, and they wanted to recast Part 2 because they wanted someone that looked a little older for some reason. Whatever. Well, we should probably do an episode about Angel at some point in Hollywood sleaze. And the movie also stars one of the greatest exploitation bit part actors, character actors, whatever you want to call them, Buck Flower. You've seen Buck in They Live. Again, we talked a lot about They Live in this episode. He's also in The Witch Who Came from the Sea, Tammy and the T-Rex, has a part in Back to the Future because he was on a lot of movies that Dean Cundy worked on when Dean Cundy was doing exploitation movies, including Witch Came from the Sea, The Fog, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So he had a little bit part playing. If you know Buck Flower because he usually plays a homeless guy or a drunk or something like that. Mm-hmm. He has a really distinct voice, and he has a really was it a shirt or a hat he wears in the movie? I think it's a fucking shirt.
He wears a hat that says "The check is in the mail."
Yeah,
and then it says "mail" in red. It's like the kind of thing you just get at a gas station, It's like a sick ass trucker hat.
Yeah, man, that is a nice touch. And it's kind of nice seeing Buck in here because, although this movie came out in the 90s, it is definitely very 70s exploitation vibe. Oh, yeah. Straight up. For those of you who haven't seen this movie, here's a little plot. The locals made a bet they could beat a traveling all-girl baseball team. See, this description says baseball team, but their friendly game of baseball is about to go foul. When Babe and the Ballgirls beat the home team, the only error they make is thinking that they will all reach home safely. Now their only game plan is to stay alive. Hunted down like animals, they have to hit and run if they hope to survive. So, the blurb I grabbed is correct.
Mm-hmm.
All the other shit that says softball is not.
Yeah. Again,
I think this is institutionalized sexism because it's an all-woman team that's softball. But, A League of Their Own, they play fucking baseball. So, and I think this
hardball.
Hardball.
People say he plays hardball.
Hardball.
They're playing hardball in this film.
Yeah, they really do play hardball in this movie. So I guess we should talk about how much baseball is in this movie. Well, the first 11 minutes or so, you get a whole entire fucking game.
Yeah, they do. They play a whole lot of baseball at the beginning.
I mean, whereas like in the background of Night Game, it's, basically radio and occasionally on TV and then like a little bit when he's in the press box and all that.
There might be more baseball in the opening of this one than there is in the entirety of Night Game.
I agree with that. And I mean, like, you want a exploitation movie with baseball. Like, there's Troma made a movie called Squeeze Play, which was more of a sex comedy, which I had on the list, but I feel like I want, again, baseball doubleheader. I don't even know if this makes a good double feature. It kind of does in a weird way, because you get, like, the slow burn Saturday afternoon movie, and then you got your fucking late night movie here, which is this. So, the way I would kind of explain Blood Games for those of you who haven't seen it, I already said, definitely a throwback to 70s grimy exploitation. I'd say it's kind of Deliverance meets I Spit on Your Grave meets The Most Dangerous Game.
That's fair. Yeah.
I think it checks all three of those movies off. And I said grimy, it's definitely sleazy, like really sleazy. Like, after that baseball scene, there's like a 4 to 5 minute scene in a shower with all the women baseball players. Mm-hmm. And Buck Flower shows up because he's trying to like spy, and then they like kind of spray water on him. It goes on. There's like dialogue exchanges, exposition, but like for an exploitation movie to do it with like basically the cheap TNA thing, I mean, that's the way you do it.
When they grab him, when they grab him in the bathroom, he goes, "Oh, that's my bad arm," and they grab him by his neck, and he goes, "Oh shit, that's my bad neck."
I kind of wonder if that's just Buck making up lines, because I don't think anyone would write that.
That's so good.
Fuck. So this movie has a lot of action, and there's a lot of uncomfortable violence. Now, I think in some circles this is touted as like, I know I mentioned I Spit on Your Grave, that this is like a rape revenge thing, and I think there's actually ad copy and like reviews that say like there's like multiple rapes in it.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's kind of how I remembered it. I ended up finding this thing probably about 8 years ago when I was in like I was going down just a big, like, just kind of looking for crazy horror, like going down a rabbit hole of like 80s and 90s horror. And this one's like, I don't know, up until it being released recently, like I kind of never heard of it otherwise. So now that the Blu-ray is available, that's rad. But like, where did this thing even come from, man?
Yeah, I mean, I know New Beverly played it a few years ago.
Really?
Like Halloween marathons.
Oh, that's so sick. I had no clue.
So there's a 35 out there. I don't know who has it or whatever, but
yeah.
Like, you know, it's part of the MGM library right now. So maybe our friends at Park Circus have a print.
Oh,
who knows? But like, you know, there is a rape in the movie, and it's a pretty harrowing one. Like it's a gang rape. Like I guess that's where the Deliverance thing comes in there.
Yeah, for sure. But I saw it like probably 8 years ago, and I was telling a mutual friend of ours the other day that we were going to talk about this, and I hadn't rewatched it yet. And so I'm telling him about it, and I remember it just being like a straight up like, this is a rape revenge film. Like, I thought the whole fucking team got raped.
I mean, some of the ad copy in it, like,
yeah,
implies that what it is, and like it's, you know, disingenuous. I'm pretty glad that that's not what it is,
right?
Because like, you know, it's a rough movie on its own. I think, you know,
I mean, even the fucking baseball scene is crazy. I mean, it's like so much just like they're grabbing all the women's asses. Yeah, it's everything. Man. I mean, it's nuts.
This is a true exploitation movie to the fullest.
But then one of the women grabbed the baseball and she fucking throws it at one of the players, and it hits him right in the fucking nuts. It's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, there's like a lot of give and take in here, and like,
yes.
Sometimes
you don't fully know the perspective of the film, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean? It kind of goes back and forth where you're like, wait a second, I thought this was a feminist film. Wait a second, I thought this thing is just sleazy.
Yeah,
It
hits all the notes, and like I think if it had been like, if it leaned one way too hard, I don't think it would work. Or like if it was like, you know, a feminist movie, and there's nothing wrong with being a feminist movie,
sure,
but I don't think the agenda, regardless that was directed by a woman, is to make this feminist piece of art.
Right.
The agenda is to make a fucking exploitation movie.
Yeah. This is not some big statement.
Because like one of the things you were talking about, and it's like, we're not trying to like objectify women here, but like that whole baseball team, it's like,
it's all like the casting, they just casted a bunch of fucking supermodels.
Yeah.
Straight up. Like the whole team, the whole men's team are like the biggest like fucking apple dumpling gang yokel motherfuckers, and everything. It's all casted so well. It's the wardrobe is so well. I mean, it's all fucking authentic. I mean, the check is in the mail.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and then all the women are just like,
Yeah, and like that's even kind of uncommon for like I feel like, and it's like again, I'm just talking about like in the way you cast exploitation movies, like you would have like, you know, the token like a couple hot women or whatever. That whole team is stacked, and like it's not just like they're all the same. They're all different too. Like it's also the rare thing where it's like everyone has personality. Even some of the characters on the team that are like don't have a big part in the movie. Yeah, they're all distinctive.
So true.
And like that's just great casting. Like, you know, even all the fucking yokels and like those fucking dudes, they're all distinctive. Like there's no sameness to it. Like I mean, that's something rare in exploitation movie, because normally you get like generic 5 rednecks. They're like, who's that? Interchangeable, and like they're all like, everyone's like stands out.
Yeah,
and that's, you know, that's just great casting, especially for an exploitation movie. Which I don't know what the budget was on it, but like,
I mean, when I saw it before, you know, I must have found it on fucking YouTube or something. But it's really cool to have I mean, they did a great restoration off of a 35 millimeter print. So I mean, this new version that we can watch now is like, it looks fucking great, and it shows that it had like, you know, it didn't have a big budget like by a long shot, but it fucking looks great.
Yeah,
it looks great. It sounds great. Like I say, the wardrobe, the acting, the casting, like fucking hits everything, dude. This one rocks. I'm maybe giving my opinion a little too early here, but this is a motherfucker. This rocks. But also not for everyone. It's fucking sleazy as hell.
Yeah, it does get rough in spots. Like, you know, obviously we mentioned there's a extended rape scene in it, but like there's some brutalization on like both ends and genders. Like people get fucked up in this movie, like no joke. And like, you know, I don't know if it's direct homage to like I Spill on Your Grave, but when Buck's character dies, they kind of hang him in the woods. And there's a character that like kind of like try to word this properly, the mentally challenged member of the rape posse in like I Spit on Your Grave, where he's like, don't watch me, I can't come. That guy, when like Camille Keaton kills him in I Spit on Your Grave, she fucking hangs him. There's a similar death to Buck in there. Not the setup, but like, yeah, it kind of reminded me exactly of that. So yeah. I don't know if that was an influence. I mean, it probably was an influence just for the nature of like what this movie is, you know. But you also get like chase scenes with like, because the girls are stuck on that bus, and like their manager, I guess it's Babe, Laura Albert's character's dad is like killed. He gets fucking shanked because they don't pay him the full amount of money.
Yeah,
and I mean, there's a lot going on. Like you got action sequences, you have like survival horror moments. Like it's grueling, and like it's impressive when you think like there's 10 minutes of baseball in front of it.
Yeah.
So the last 80 minutes is just like, it ramps it up for like, you know, a pretty perfect grindhouse like movie experience. Like, you know, there's no false notes. It's just like, you know, they're like when one of the girl players dies, it fucking hits hard, because like they're like, the cast is affected, you know. Even when like one of the fucking dumb rednecks fucking dies, their homies are fucking upset.
Yeah, dude. When the guy gets crushed in between the dumpsters, like Roy, it was Roy's birthday. I don't know if you remember when they're playing baseball. There's a huge banner on like the fence behind the catcher, you know, that just says "Happy Birthday, Roy." And I just thought that was fucking hilarious to begin with. It's just like, it seems kind of out of place, but then like as soon as the game's over, they're back at their like fucking
shit kicker bar,
you know, and it's fucking Roy's birthday, and we're fucking partying, and then Roy gets killed, and you're like, damn, I fucking hate Roy, but that shit hit.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's like, there's also a point in the movie where it's like you kind of get some of these like dumbass rednecks don't exactly want to go through with it, but like it's mob mentality.
Yeah. Especially
when like Ken Carpenter's character's like, I'll pay $1,000 for every one of these dead bitches, or whatever the fucking line is.
Yeah, it's something like that. Yeah.
Like it just like, you know, the movie just switches gears. So I mean, it doesn't really switch gears. It's straight up an exploitation movie all the way through. There's no denying that. But like, you know, it goes very action oriented. It goes very like when they're in the woods and it's like kind of booby trap, like, you know, trying to think of like maybe Rambo First Blood kind of elements going on there. So it gets gnarly. And then you have Ken Carpenter and Laura Albert's Babe character have a showdown at the end in this grain silo, which is just a fucking insane sequence. Yeah. Like they're just I mean, the way it's set up, the way it's executed, and like when she basically has to trick him because she's wounded, the fucking like they go inside this grain silo and he can't find her. She comes swinging down and kicks him, and he lands on a piece of like, I don't know, like farm equipment. He gets fucking impaled at the end. Yeah. It's fucking grisly. And then, you know, I know we've fully spoiled this movie here, but like at the end with all the surviving baseball players, they're all like, you know, limping back, you know, with a moral victory, but still realizing everything's fucked. And then it does a fucking slow motion montage of all the players that died.
It's great, and what makes it even better is the fucking soundtrack to this movie is awesome. It's like weird 70s synth shit, like little Nine Inch Nails mixed in almost. Like
there was a couple cues that it's like, this sounds like Pretty Hate Machine or Nine Inch Nails.
Right. Like it's that era of like early 90s industrial where it's cool shit.
It's definitely synth, but like it just like, you know, it kind of goes all over the place. Like I think I gave this like a 3.5 star rating. The more I think about it, it's definitely a 4.
Hell yeah.
Like, because I hadn't watched it in a while, and like when I rewatched it, I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. And like, you know, it's like I guess I felt like I don't know if I can rate this higher than this, but like talking about it, I'm already actively reevaluating it.
It's not as like. It's more the sum of its parts than like just how sleazy it is at times, right? Like, because that's what you remember is just how fucking sleazy this movie was, and you want to give it a bad rating. But if you really look at it under a critical lens, like it has so much more to offer. Yeah, and it's a shame that Tanya Rosenberg never made another movie. I don't know why. I actually popped on the special features on the Vinegar Syndrome disc just to see if there was any clue as to why she didn't. My understanding, like I believe she like. On the Laura Albert one, she basically said she was Israeli, and I think most of the crew was Israeli. Okay. So I don't know, like it kind of like reminds me of something that Cannon would have produced. Yeah. And like, you know, not trying to like say because like, oh, you're an Israeli filmmaker, you're gonna make fucking action exploitation trash like Cannon did. Obviously, that's not, you know, there's plenty of Israeli filmmakers not doing that. There's a lot of art house stuff that comes out of Israel and stuff like that, but it's a kind of a throwback to like that era of Cannon, like Death Wish 3 and like, you know, Missing in Action and shit like that, like very exploitive action movies. But this is definitely like, it's definitely out of step with the 90s, because like by the time like the 90s hit, movies like this weren't going to be made. They're more like, dare I say, like a lot of horror stuff was more cartoony, because like at that point, like Freddy Krueger was just a stand-up comedian. Hell, we talked about Hellraiser 3, where like it became very jokey. You know, like it just like people weren't making movies that hardcore. And obviously there was like shot on video stuff that like will beg to differ about this, but I'm talking about things that are shot on film that like were distributed to play in theaters. Yeah, weren't coming out like this at the time. So it's an interesting time capsule, and like, you know, it's just fucking wild. And hey, unlike Night Game, there's a fuck ton of baseball in it. Right. But we're going to go ahead and round the bases here and take one last break. But when we return, read, watch, and listen here on the Cinematic Void Podcast.
It started as a Sunday afternoon baseball game. Guys against the girls. Then these rednecks turned out to be real sore losers. That's when things started to get ugly.
We're gonna kill them!
And we did. 17-2. But while we were celebrating in the locker room, the guys were raising hell and looking for trouble.
You know what I need just about now? Pussy, dumb shit.
Mickey and Connie were it. Things got way out of hand.
I want justice.
Roy's dad turned out to be an ex-mercenary. And we were in a whole lot of trouble.
We have to get away from here, so let's go!
Those dirtbags hunted us down like animals. But we weren't about to give up.
Drop your weapons, I'll bust your neck!
The old mercenary was relentless. He just kept coming. It started out as a friendly game of baseball, but at the bottom of the ninth, it's every man for himself. In blood games.
Welcome back. It's now time for on the Cinematic Void podcast, where we talk about all the things we've been reading, watching, and or listening to since the last time we recorded a podcast. So I'm going to go ahead and throw it over to Nick and ask him, Nick, what have you been reading, watching, and or listening to?
All right, so I recently picked up a book called I'm Not Holding Your Coat by Nancy Brill from Rubicon Records that are fairly new on Santa Monica. I'm heading over towards Vermont. So mostly like I guess you could say like electronic music, a lot of like new wave and synth based stuff. It just runs the gamut of that. But he also has a ton of cool books. So I picked this up, and Nancy Brill she set up shows in Philly and stuff like that way back in the day. And she's married to one of the guys from SSD. So she's like always been connected in the scene, like up and down the East Coast. And yeah, so I've just been reading this. I think she's even currently a teacher in Philadelphia, I think. But yeah, she's very interesting, and the book is great. I'm almost done. I haven't quite finished it, but almost there, just kind of blazing right through it. My favorite part of this book so far, and you'll find this interesting, my absolute favorite, and it was like just this, throwaway, 2 lines as she's talking about going and seeing the Misfits in 82 or something, right? And something that I just never thought about, and you don't really think about it this way, right? And you see all the old pictures and old flyers and shit, and sure, it's the fucking Misfits. It looks cool as hell. But if you think about it, dude, come on, no one liked the Misfits when they were around. Think about it, dude. You go to see the fucking Necros and Minor Threat or some shit. You go to see some fucking awesome raging hardcore, and then some dude comes out and he's like, I'm fucking Dracula. What the fuck, dude? Get the fuck out of my face. Are you kidding me? Right? So she kind of makes a point in the book. There's just she liked the Misfits, but everyone at the time thought they were corny. And we enjoyed the Misfits in a later era where that was just some sick shit. You know what I mean? It's just the image of the whole thing is it's so rad. But if you were there at the time and you were into whatever, the real cool shit, you probably didn't love the Misfits. The Misfits were kind of dorky.
Yeah, but the thing to say is, it's there's probably a lot of, dare I say, even better hardcore bands that came out in the Misfits era.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them have been forgotten by the annals of time, unless you were on a bigger label. There's that Koro record,
yeah,
which is I think one of the best hardcore records ever made.
Yeah, top 5 U.S. hardcore records.
Yeah, but no one fucking really knows, unless you're actively into fucking hardcore. No one remembers them or knows who they are.
Right.
But everyone remembers the Misfits, and I think I hate to say it, hokey gimmicks is what why some of those bands remained, or essentially branding, which I'm going to talk about a little bit on my rewatch and listen, because Misfits had a logo, they had an image, Dead Kennedys had a logo, had an image, had a unique voice. Danzig sounded like fucking Elvis.
Yeah,
that's not common hardcore. Jello Biafra had a really high pitched, kind of, some would say, annoying voice, but that's what made it stand out.
Yeah, totally.
And then Black Flag had 800 different singers until they got the Henry Rollins, but they had the Pettibon art, the fucking bars, all that shit. So I mean, this kind of ties back to we were talking about last podcast about branding and all that kind of shit that goes with film programming. It's how do you make yourself stand out? Well, that's why people remember the Misfits now. Yeah. They got clowned at the time, but
totally. Yeah, I mean, full respect to them. Absolutely. I mean, always will always be one of my favorites for sure.
I mean,
but just got to acknowledge that it's just a cool thing to you weren't there and you didn't the people people that are our age or younger or whatever just don't have that experience of having been there and to truly know what something was like at the time. So I just thought that was the coolest little piece of history. I mean, the whole book is fucking interesting, so I'm sorry that my takeaway from this book is just that little Misfit story, but she's interesting and saw every every one of those fucking bands, you know, or like booked their bands and like knows them and hung out with them and like whatever. Like, you know what I mean? She knows everyone and it's fucking rad, but she also clowned the Misfits and said she liked them at the time and went to see them, but like none of her friends wanted to go because everybody thought the Misfits were fucking corny. And that's so rad.
You know, that this is how like time and history changes.
Yeah, absolutely. Super sick. So next up would be Watch, and I surely have plenty. I watched Malignant, and I fucking hate Malignant, dude. I'm not even gonna talk about it. I'm just saying I fucking hated Malignant so much, and I just want to say that. What the fuck? We're screening right now. We're screening Memoria at both of our theaters really on Monday. I mean, this won't be out by then, but like on Monday it'll be playing at the Arrow as well. Sort of at that point played at both theaters. But meanwhile, ramping up to Memoria, we were screening a bunch of Apichat Pong Weir Sethical's films. The first one I saw was Uncle Boone Me. That one's great, and that's probably the one that I would recommend the most. A lot of his films have like a weird, like underlying like a sci-fi undercurrent, but it's never really like the main focus of the story. His films are very strange, like very like dreamlike, very slow, some very long. So you know, not for everyone, but like I say, they do have a strange, like kind of weird undercurrent of like mystery, and I don't know, it's cool. And Memoria is, you know, it's a new Neon film, so that's getting some hype. So even I think a lot of people are going to see it that don't really know this guy's work, and there are a lot of 1-star reviews on Letterboxd. I'll put it that way. That shit is not for everyone, dude.
Well, I mean, this film in particular is supposed to never really have a home video release, right? Because they're kind of treating it. I think it's through him that they're treating it as like moving art installation, right?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And it is that. And I loved it. But like, I don't know. You know, it's also I want to be careful about it. Like, I don't know if I recommend it. You know, but I really like his stuff. I do. And there's a few I haven't seen. But yeah, Uncle Boone Me, Cemetery of Splendor, Tropical Malady. A lot of his films are like in 2 parts. It's very like sometimes it's just straight up 2 stories that barely interconnect. Oh, it's a lot of strange shit going on in his stuff. So if you have an open mind, I recommend it. Also just saw, what else? My Life as a Dog, man. My Life as a Dog is a film by Lasse Hallström, and he actually also directed What's Eating Gilbert Grape, of all things. But I went into this like knowing fuck all about it, and My Life as a Dog, I love this movie. It's Swedish, and it's from 1985, and it's fucking. You've never seen this?
I've never seen that movie. I'm aware of it, but
dude, I loved it so much. It's just so like, it's quirky in almost like that Tin Drum sort of way. It's quirky and dark, and it's so cool, man. I mean, like, I don't know.
Is it on Criterion?
It is actually, yeah. And we did watch that for the Spine Numbers podcast. I don't know if I can I do a little.
Well, the last 3 episodes.
Can I do a little plug?
The last 3 episodes you've plugged away, and the podcast still isn't out.
just talking about my life, you know. That's what we do here. And really, I don't know. I guess that's about it. And like I say, I just had that screening at the LF3 that I chose the film for, which was The Fire Within. If you haven't seen The Fire Within and you like dark films about suicide, like literally just like, you know, it's not a spoiler. Like, the film is about a guy that's getting ready to kill himself. Like, that's literally the plot of the movie. It's just like, I'm killing myself Sunday night, so I'm just going out for 2 days and hanging out with my old friends, and I'm telling them all it's done, and they don't fucking believe me, and whatever. And you know, it's great. It's a motherfucker.
It's a great feel good movie about suicide.
Hell yeah, it's exactly what it is, man. It's great. And then listen. I've been stuck on a few things lately. My buddy Cam, who does the Chain Gang of 1974 band, he does a label called Fever Limited, and he recently put out a new EP by a band called Mascara from France. They're like a heavy shoegaze kind of band, like a little Deftones, a little fucking, it's like half Deftones, half Slowdive or something.
Okay.
Great shit. They're super heavy. It's super catchy. It's 2 songs. So that just came out like a week or 2 ago. And they did like a lathe cut 7-inch that there's only 25 of. I grabbed one of those. And then I don't think he's put anything out by this band yet, but I know that he's working with them in some way. But there's a band called Wayside from Australia. And it's just same kind of like shoegazy heavy type shit. Oh, fucking, I've listened to this record so fucking much, like to the point of like exhaustion. Like if I actually like hung out with other people or like lived with someone else, they would kill me. Just like, dude, you don't have to just listen to the same thing over and over. Like I've just been stuck on it. So Wayside, the record's called Shine on Me, and it's I don't know, it's maybe to name other bands or something, it's similar to like Smashing Pumpkins. Maybe I played it for you, and I think you said Silver Sun Pickups a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
There's something it's like not as clean.
It's not as clean.
And definitely like more, you could tell they have more of like maybe a punk rock kind of background or something.
I mean, I think some of the polish in the songs remind me of Silver Sun Pickup. And maybe when I say Silver Sun Pickup, it might be the early Smashing Pumpkins influence that was on the early Silver Sun Pickup records.
Yeah. And then, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, I thought it was really good, but like that was just my impression when I was listening to it.
Yeah, right on. But yeah, man, those records are just fucking, I've just listened to them over and over. Also, I just got the new 3-song EP by a band from Germany called Entropy, and it'll be out, I think, at the end of July. But Hans from Entropy sent it to me, so thank you, Hans. And I've talked about Entropy a bunch on this podcast, but it's just great. So not terribly different than the last 2 bands that I was talking about, because it's just like heavy guitar rock. Influences everything from like Nothing and the Deftones, Swerve Driver, fucking everything in between. You know what I mean? Like it's just some Husker Du, Quicksand, Fireside, Jawbox, like just heavy guitar rock, catchy as fuck. But these 3 songs, like they took their LP that they did a few years ago and just like taken what they do to like the next level in songwriting. So these 3 tracks are fucking amazing, man. So that's what I've been listening to.
Right on. So for me, read the 2 main books I've been working on, and like one I started when I was like flying back from Salem, which was Are Snakes Necessary by Brian De Palma and Sue Lehman. Yes, that Brian De Palma.
Cool.
It came out on the Hardcase like kind of pulp book line. They've put out some things by Stephen King and other pulp writers, and like I think they even put out a Nice Guys like adaptation.
Oh, neat.
So they do a lot of like the throwback to the Dashiell Hammetts and Raymond Chandler and like Donald Westlake, I think that's his name, like things like that. So they sometimes do archival like book releases and like or manuscripts that were like just found or never finished or out of print, and they also get new stuff. So I've been reading about that. It's kind of a political thriller. I'm not too deep into it, but like I can see the strands of De Palma in there.
Okay.
Like it definitely, there's a lot of punchy like short sentences in it, but like you can get the impression like you can see the split Doppler shot popping up in your head or whatever.
Cool.
So good stuff. The other book I've been reading, which is kind of a change of pace because, well, I know we talk about a lot of like music books and you're reading one too. I'm reading Corporate Rock Still Sucks, The Rise and Fall of SST Records by Jim Rollin.
Oh man, I need that.
And I don't want to say I'm not far. I'm probably like maybe 80 to 100 pages in, and I've just gotten to the point that Henry Rollins has joined Black Flag.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot more insider baseball and like how SST formed and that kind of stuff. Like obviously they're talking about like, recording and stuff, like how Greg Ginn like was just slow to even release records from the beginning, because they did like that first Black Flag record and that Minutemen EP, Paranoid Time, was supposed to be the second one, but it took like a year for it to come out.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think Mike Watt had started New Alliance, and they put out a record right away, and they couldn't figure out what the fucking delay was.
Oh, weird.
But it talks about, gets into like Greg Ginn's background, like building like ham radios and that kind of stuff, because that's where SST started.
Right, it's like solid state technologies or something?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting, like he had a successful business that he was funneling into like starting a big record company, and like how like, obviously you can read Henry Rollins Get in the Van, but like I feel like you only get the Rollins like era of it. Like this way, you kind of get the whole build up of like Black Flag and how it became a touring machine and a record label. SST became a record label. I'm kind of curious to get to more like the indie rock, college rock era when he was signing like Sonic Youth and Dinosaur Jr.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I mean, each chapter, the way it's like phrased, it's like SST versus like Unicorn. SST versus like MCA, like that.
Because they had their legal issues and whatnot.
Yeah, like every chapter starts with a versus. It's like SST versus the media.
Oh, geez, okay.
So it's kind of a cool hook to it. So I've been really digging it.
There's those, like 10 or so, like, holy fuck bands, right? Like maybe even more than 10, really. Like their lineup is crazy, right? Like, every influential band from those eras, like, were on fucking SST. But the amount of records that he put out, there are so many just like obscure, like Poindexter Stewart and fucking Trotsky Ice Pick and like a billion things that like are not Soundgarden and not Husker Du and not Sonic Youth, like there are a million bands on this fucking label. And so I'm curious how much they end up talking about that obscure stuff.
I mean, I think they're going to have to, because like it's still at the very early stages, because like right now it's building like what I would call the network of friends.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you find places to tour and like you find bands to play with. And like,
I mean, like Black Flag created, modern punk rock touring.
Yeah. And like, I mean, I know there's a lot of like, we've talked about Black Flag plenty of times. Yeah. There was an ongoing joke that this was a Black Flag podcast at one point, but like the nitty gritty of this, and like, as like, I think it's a good book to look at, like, if you're trying to expand and what you're trying to do stuff, it's like, how do you build stuff? Mm-hmm. How you build stuff from the ground up. And that's like the most compelling thing about it. And obviously there's going to be a point where they fuck it all up.
Yeah. Like, how do you be Greg Ginn and build relationships?
Well, I mean, yeah, they're obviously going to get into that, but like, it's a good read, and like, I can't wait to like, finish it up, because like, I definitely want to get to the weird part where like, obviously there's the post, maybe at the same time, the Gone records and like all that shit.
Oh yeah,
and like the relocation to Austin and like all that. I mean, I don't know if they're going to just stay in the main era of like SST, but like
cat sanctuaries.
Yeah, fuck, man. There's a lot to unpack in that book. I mean, it talks about how they like Keith Morris quit, and then they brought him back to do some gigs, and then like, well, we can't keep him around, like the fight, like Greg Ginn like sent an angry letter when he could have done a phone call about like not being credited on like, I think Circle Jerks on Group Sex re-recorded a Black Flag song and like changed the lyrics slightly. It was a song that Keith Morris wrote with Greg Ginn.
Okay.
But like Greg Ginn wasn't credited on it, and they're like, he could have called us and we would have done it right away, but he sent a fucking formal letter to fucking get his credit. And like, it also goes into like petty things he would do, but then he would do similar petty things, and like think it was okay.
Yeah.
It's definitely an interesting read. I recently saw The Northman in the theater and enjoyed it more than I thought it would.
Yeah,
like, it's visually stunning. It definitely feels like a $70 million, $90 million. I think it's more 90 because of like COVID and working around all that shit. If I have a nitpick with it, it does feel like a season of one of those Viking shows, like Vikings, or like, I forget some of the other titles, but it feels like a condensed 2.5 hour season of one of those shows into a movie. But there's a lot of great stuff in it visually, and it made me go back and rewatch some Robert Eggers movies. I was never a fan of The Witch when it came out. I think the hype machine killed it for me, because there was a lot of people like, this is the greatest horror movie since The Exorcist kind of fucking things being thrown around. I watched it. It's like, I know exactly where this movie's going. And like, we were talking about this before on the podcast of like trying to figure out and solve the gimmicks of movies and stuff. And I don't do that, but like, as I'm watching a movie, I'm piecing together information. And like, my problem with The Witch is it felt very familiar.
Like, I know at some point she's gonna want to live deliciously.
Exactly. I mean, not that specifically, but like, by the time I got to the end of The Witch, I was like, whatever. But like, rewatching it, I think I like it. I still don't think it's one of the greatest horror movies of the 20th, 21st century, 22nd century, whatever fucking century we're in.
Yeah.
But I think it's solid. And then I also rewatched The Lighthouse, which I think is his best movie so far, because it's just so fucking weird.
Yeah, dude, it's sick.
Yeah, fucking like Dafoe and Robert Pattinson just giving like, it's like a 2-person play in a fucking white lighthouse, and just how fucking weird it gets.
Lovecraftian.
Yeah,
you know?
it's another, dare I say, horror by the water.
Oh yeah.
I also recently rewatched for the first time in I couldn't even tell you when, Marked for Death with Steven Seagal. It's also got Keith David and a bunch of other character actors. This came because my wife and I watched riff tracks of a Steven Seagal movie, and just like the way he reads dialogue now, it's like, did he always fucking say his lines like that? And sure enough, he did. But somehow in the 90s and late 80s, it worked. Whereas now it's just like, he doesn't really move or fight. Like, it's like he's standing there and like he grabs someone by the arm, and then the cut of the guy gets thrown around. Like during the fucking arm breaking, fucking just bone cracking Seagal days, like Marked for Death still, it has a weird ending. It has like a non-ending, which was like kind of a 90s thing, but I still think it's pretty good. And I also recently watched, I had the privilege of seeing Chris LaMartina's like sequel to WNUF, the sequel, or part 2. I don't know what it's officially called. I don't want to talk too much about it, but I will say like it's fucking fantastic. Yeah. This could alienate people, or it could be like another like rallying cry, because like it's, you know, I'll just say the things that's out there. It takes place in the 90s. So, and aesthetically, the movie nails the 90s in a way that I didn't think was possible.
Yeah.
Like just from everything. And I don't want to talk plot points or whatever, but like we got something cooking for this at some point. So be on the lookout for some kind of Cinematic Void WNUF 2 thing coming. But like it's really great. And I know he's a friend and all that, and I worked on the first one and all that, but like I personally, and I know I'm overhyped, I think it's better than the first one. For a lot of reasons that I can't get into, because this is the time where you don't do spoilers.
Yeah.
Because it's not out yet. And because I was watching it and kind of in a Halloween mood, I decided to rewatch, since it's now on Blu-ray and Ultra HD, Flesh Eater by our boy Bill Heinzman, that we talked about on the Halloween podcast, like I guess 2 years ago now. At this point.
Yeah. Okay.
Where Bill Heinzman reprises his Lee Ghoul from Night of the Living Dead, and I don't know. Yeah, so it's a very good restoration. So I'm surprised that there's a 4K fucking disc of it, but
oh, rad.
That's the world we live in. I listened to a bunch of little things, but the two main things I listened to was the new Pusha T album, It's Almost Dry. Holy shit. We've listened to a lot of coke rap in the last 2 years.
Right.
There was a point where you didn't listen to guitar music at all.
Yeah, all I liked was coke rap.
And in a weird way, there's something refreshing about this, because it feels different, even though like, you know, he's talking about it. But the record's half produced by like Kanye West, and the other by Pharrell from, you know, Neptunes and all that. Okay. And it's really there's not any skips. Like even the stuff that I kind of don't like, I still think is good. Yeah. Like, you know, Ye definitely talks about his divorce on like both his guest features or whatever.
Hey, you know, you talk about what you know.
Yeah, I don't need to hear it on both songs, but like, you know, like, but like it has a really good Jay-Z verse on it. But like it's a really solid record, and I think it's doing really well for him.
I think it's sick as hell.
Yeah,
it's sick as hell. The beats are crazy.
Yeah,
it starts off with like a really bass heavy track that like, I mean,
that Brambleton song.
Man, it's so good. And like I first threw it on in the car, and so like I didn't even know that the sound system in my car was like that sick. It's just like the bass hits so hard in that song. Just like, man, this fucking rocks.
I mean, it's a fucking solid follow-up to Daytona. Yeah. And like it's like it has catchy singles. It has like fucking, he raps his ass off. Like there's fucking bars, like the fucking like the one coke line about selling white privilege, like fucking had me roll. I was on the plane listening to it.
Yeah.
And I was like fucking, I think I laughed out loud when I heard that line. It's like fucking, it's fucking genius.
Hell yeah.
The other thing I listened to, because like for some reason, I don't know why, I, you know, forgot that Spaz, this power violence band from San Francisco, Bay Area, I guess Bay Area.
Yeah.
You know, Chris Dodge now, I think he's in a band called Trap This, and I think like the drummer of Spaz now teaches like history in Vermont or something like that. Or a friend Matt Average probably know better than us, but like Spaz was on the soundtrack to Gummo, the Harmony Korine movie. And it was always a weird thing. There was like the song called the Gummo Love Theme. it's not even like, it's not really a typical Spaz song because there's some weird shit going on, but like, I threw it on and then I just went down a, like this rabbit hole listening to a lot of Spaz. So like Spaz, like all three band members do vocals in it at different times. There's like weird breaks, you know, obviously blast beats, fast parts, but like there's just some interesting stuff in there. Like there's definitely like a lot of movie references, a lot of like just weird fucking like callbacks to like Crack and like
I was dropping some shit on Nikolai probably last weekend, and somehow Spaz came up, and I was saying, this is something I recently came up with, but I think it's fucking true. If not for Spaz, like power violence would be forgotten.
Yeah.
Like the entire like 5 billion power violence bands that have happened since the year 2000, like wouldn't even exist if it wasn't for Spaz. Like No Comment and Crossed Out and even Infest. Like I'm not saying they would be like lost to history, but like I think that it would be something that, you know, some old heads would fucking know about and like whatever, but like it wouldn't be something that's like you know, carried on today and like there's still just going to be some power violence show next week. It's a very like power violence is a very particular thing. It's a very particular subgenre of hardcore, you know. And I think that Spaz were like the, you know, they carried the banner into like the next generations, and then after that it never stopped, but I think it really would have.
I mean, I think
they're very important, even if as a kind of a joke band, like they're very fucking important.
I mean, the thing is, it's like when you talk about like No Comment and Crossed Out and bands like that, they're very abrasive and very angry and in some ways very unaccessible.
Yeah.
Because like it's just very caveman like, and that even goes towards Man's the Bastard, which was more, I don't want to say arty, but in a way they were more arty.
Right.
Where Spaz was accessible, like, you know, because they had sound clips and like they would throw in banjos and even, God forbid, a fucking saxophone into a song.
But even in all their jokes and whatever, like they would name dropped so many other bands, and like they like, so just it, you know, you couldn't help but go check out and figure out what the fuck Man is the Bastard is and whatever else.
I mean, the other thing is the amount of splits they did. They did splits with like basically every other like pivotal existing hardcore band that was in like in the 90s and maybe up through like, I'm trying to think when Spaz ended, maybe like 2000, 2001 or something like that. Like they did splits with like bands across the country and across the world.
Spaz collected other power violence bands like they were Pokemon. And released split 7 inches with them.
In a way, they curated because like a lot of people would buy a Spaz record, but then you would also get fucking, you know, you get Lack of Interest on the B side,
and then you'd have to go find all the Lack of Interest records.
Exactly, and same with
do that
Monster,
with everything. Charles
you know,
Bronson,
Monster X, Black Army Jacket, like all those bands. So like, it's the opposite of gatekeeping. It was like, you know. Hey, we're doing a split with this band because they're cool, and like obviously because they get the Spaz cosign, you're gonna go check out all that shit too.
So it also tells you that maybe even for good reason, but like Spaz were also hated at the time by a lot of the motherfuckers that were trying to gatekeep, and respect to them too.
I mean, the other thing is like, you know, Chris Dodge ran Slap-A-Ham Records, which was like at the time was like that was the label that everyone wanted to be on.
Right, totally. So like even if you didn't like his band, you'd probably just the sheer amount of other bands that you did like on his label, you want to be on his label anyway.
Exactly.
And so like those guys, man, they spread that shit like the fucking gospel.
Yeah, I mean like Max did. I think he's still doing 625, and like all the bands that came out of that. And
that
like,
fucking label's incredible.
Yeah, and you also like, I mean,
like both of those record labels. You could just like if something new came out on it, you would just buy it sight unseen. It didn't matter what like. Not everything was great, but mostly 90%.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely a point towards the end of Slap-A-Ham that there was a couple duds on there.
Yeah,
and there was a couple times I think he was ahead of the game. He put out a Burning Witch record, which was like a, you know, very popular sludge band now, but at the time people were like, "Why the fuck are you putting this out?"
Totally.
So he was like on the pulse, and then like maybe got a little ahead of the pulse. But there's like some of my favorite records also is like that Gasp record, which is just fucking weird.
Hell yeah.
And like, you know, I still love all that stuff. But yeah, throw on Spaz. It's not for everyone, but like, you know, when you have Kool Keith show up on your fucking record,
hell yeah,
that says something.
Yep.
It was the night. I mean, we got into Spaz when we were in high school, and it was the perfect bridge of like hardcore, hip hop, movie references, a lot of martial arts and like Hong Kong stuff. Like they did a song called Hard Boiled about like John Woo's Hard Boiled and stuff like that.
Totally.
So it was like this in wrestling, luchador wrestling and stuff. So and obviously I mentioned crack. I don't know like if it was a joke or whatever. Like them fucking like selling crack with members of No Less and whatever.
There's a lot of crack jokes in the Spaz songs.
Yeah. Like talking about like fucking selling crack. I don't know. So maybe that's why we started listening to a lot of coke rap, was because a lot of the fucking crack rock, as I'm doing quotes around it for Spaz. I don't know. But anyway, that wraps up this episode of the Cinematic Void podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, why don't you give us a 5-star on whatever platform you're using, except for Facebook podcast, because I got an email saying that's going to not exist anymore.
Oh.
I only signed up for it because it was an option. It's like, well, I just send the feed there. So
yeah.
I don't think it's a big loss or anything. If you listen to it on Facebook, let us know. Sorry, it won't be there anymore, but there's plenty of other platforms we're on.
I'm hoping for the downfall of Facebook entirely. So, just take little pieces at a time.
Yeah. So now that the podcast is falling, what next? The fucking market or whatever. I don't know. But yeah, we'll be back at some point. We'll be doing our Spine Numbers crossover that we've talked about at least on 2 episodes. I think it's more of Nikolai's schedule at this point.
Yeah, motherfucker.
Yeah, motherfucker. And, we got some other things we're working on. I guess I do need to, I've been saying, we had a bunch of guests planned for February that we had to push off while we had tech problems. I guess we should probably start setting those up. Cool. But anyway, until next time, see you in the void.
This copyrighted telecast is presented by authority of the Office of the Commissioner of Baseball and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form without express written consent.